Alright, in this video I will be going through the missing number lead code problem. And to start off with the problem description, this is where it says, given an array nums containing distinct numbers in the range 0 to n, return the only number in the range that is missing from the array. So in this video I'll be going over an O of n solution, meaning that big O of n, meaning that it's going to be a linear solution. So what does that mean? It means that the longer the input, the more time it's going to take. So that's the kind of solution I'm going to put for this one because it's the simplest to explain. So to start off, let's go through the understanding portion that I have here. In this understanding portion, I have two test cases that highlight what we're up against and how we're going to tackle this. So starting off with our first case, we have an array 3, 0, and 1, and we are to output 2 because what's missing in the array is 2. And that's how that one would go. And the second one, this is where things get a little weird, but this is just how this one works out, is we will be having the test cases 0, 1, 2 in this one. However, this one is going to be outputting the number 3. The reason for this is while it does have everything technically in here, we are missing the last number. And that's how this problem would work out. And that last number is 3. So what I see here for sure that we are also going to be starting from the number 0, and then we're going to be ending with the max number. So all right, kind of going with that, let's go ahead and jump into the matching portion where we will actually get started in the framework of error, more of the foundations of what we're using. So right off the bat, I know that I will be using, for sure, I'm going to be having an empty list. We'll be having an empty list, and I will also be having, or will be using, is the max method. And the max method basically takes the highest number inside of, or the biggest number inside the array. So in here for this case it would be 2, and in this case it would be 3. And this is going to be very useful for the solution. And then we are going to be going through some for loops, and it looks like we're going to be going through 2. So times 2 to represent that we're using 2 of them. And we're also going to be using the not in method. Pretty sure I'd call it method. I'm not sure what you'd call it, but I think for now I'm going to stick with method. And this is a built-in feature inside of Python that we will be using. And also because we are initializing an empty list, we're also going to be appending our certain elements in there inside of the empty list. All right, so start off, now that we have our basic tools for this that'll get us to solve the solution, let's actually get started with it. So assuming that we go ahead and just jump straight into the say it's a function, so we are going to be creating a function for this, so we would say def, or you know what, let's not get into it too deep into the pseudocode. Let's just say function. Let's say integers. And that's what we're going to be using. We're going to call it function integers. And to start off, we are going to be getting our max method for this function. Let's actually kind of indent it a little bit. Get max function, or sorry, get max number, not max function, excuse me. Have that mixed up. And then we're next going to go ahead and have the empty list. So let's say empty, let's say MT for that. We're going to have empty list. So I actually have that one. So we will get our max method, have an empty list. And then the next thing we're going to be doing is within the empty list, we're actually going to be appending numbers. So we're going to create a for loop. And in this for loop, we are going to append our 0 to max. Let's call it max number. We'll highlight it. Max number plus 2. So the reason I would say plus 2 for this one is because of this, right? Let me go ahead and show you a little thing. Say we do use, say, let's go ahead and use up here that I have highlighted. Let's say we stick with this one, 0, 1, 2. All right, so let's take 0, 1, 2 with us down here. If we have the case that we have 0, 1, 2, somehow we have to say it's 3. So my max num right here, let's see here, I get this right. My max number is going to be, max num is going to be 2, right? However, if we put it into the for loop, in the for loop, it's only going to go from 1. Meaning that if I go for I in range 0 to 2, for example, I'm only going to get, 0, 1. And that's only going to append. However, I want to have 2 involved because it's part of it. So then that means I would have to have, let's say, all right, let's go ahead and say it's 3. 3 is now inside our case. I'm inside, and now 2 is inside, but 3 isn't. So that's another issue. So that means we need to add an additional number. So that means that we would have from 0 to 4. So we have 3 in our empty list. Our empty list is what we're appending all these numbers into our empty list so we can then compare later. And that's going to be the next part. So that's why we need to have, just to kind of like this part from here to here in our planning portion. That's why we need to have it in the case of for loop. We would have a for loop appending from 0 to max num, our biggest number, plus 2. So we have not just the biggest number in the inputted list, but the number that comes afterwards in the case that all the numbers are in there, just like 0, 1, 2, and then it would have to say, oh yeah, 3 is not in it. And that's where the not in portion comes in, or method comes in. And to get to that, let's actually go ahead and pseudocode that out. So then we would have to check if each number is inside the input case. So let's say here. So let's say for, I'm going to try to pseudocode for each num in empty list, meaning that our new list that we created from up here, 0 to max num plus 2. Actually, let's do 2 empty list, just so we can I can make that cleared up. And then from this part, so from each number in empty list, we check this part if for, let's see, I with capital. Well, we'll keep it with capital. So for I is what we're going to call the variable for each number inside the empty list. If I is not in, and that's where we're going to be using our not in portion up here, or not in method, excuse me. If I is not in the empty list, or actually no, not empty list, in the integer list or input list, and we're going to call it integer integers, then what's going to happen is that we are going to return I. Probably going to use, in the actual coding, I'll probably have it a different variable for the sake of this. So let's go ahead and recap real quick our planning. So our planning is to have the function based on the integers. So the integers is going to be equal to our test case. In that case, once we get into the max number, we're going to find the biggest number there is, and then we're going to declare an empty list. And that empty list, we're going to be appending all the numbers that we loop through and add it there. Next, we're going to go ahead and go through the for loop and append 0 to max num plus 2 to the empty list. And once that's done, then we're going to start doing a little bit of comparing in the second for loop. And for each number inside of the empty list, we check if it's not in the integers or the inputted list. Otherwise, we're going to be returning that number. And that's pretty much how we're going to run this. It would stay like this because regardless of the situation, let's say you might be thinking, all right, what about this one? 301. The way I have it, you might think, okay, 301, that means I'm going to be outputting 2 and 4 because 2 is missing and 4 is missing. So what gives? Well, the way Python works is the moment that you say return a number, the first number that it appears that it's missing, it's going to like spit out. And it doesn't say here only the number in the range that is missing. It doesn't say only one number or containing distinct numbers, but for all the cases that we have for this problem, it's always been the one number, and the one number is going to be the first number that's missing, whether that's going to be inside the array or the next number of the max. The number that comes after the max number is what we're looking for. So that's kind of how Python will work. So inside our Python method or our planning method, let's actually get to the implementation, and that is the actual coding for it. So now, starting with off, let's say def missing numbers, and we're going to have our integers. All right, we'll call our input integers for this case. Now the next thing we want to do is inside our method is we actually want to have max number, call it num, is going to equal to max parentheses integers. And that's how you would use this max method. Max, just in parentheses, put that in. And for any reason that it changes to, or maybe your smallest number changes, maybe it's not always going to be 1, you can get the smallest number using min. Same way, same. It's the same format that you'd put it. Only difference is that one gets the small number and the other one gets the biggest number. So that's how you use those. So we got our max number. Now next, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be having an empty list. So empty underscore list, and that is going to equal to an empty list. All right. So what do we have next in our planning is now we're going to have to go through a for loop. And this for loop, we will be going for, let's call it J for the sake of this, like auto correcting or auto capping is, let's see, looking back and forth. All right. So for J in range, so we have the range going from 0 to max num plus 2. All right. And in this, what are we doing inside here? So again, we refer back up. We are going to append 0 to up here. We are going to append 0 to max num plus 2. All right. So that means that for every j, so in our empty underscore list, we are going to append I. And this is, j, yeah, we're going to be appending j. So meaning 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's just say it's going to be that, or actually 3, yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then And that's what's going to be added onto our empty list. Then next, we have our second for loop. So for I, or let's say j again. J in empty underscore list. Then we are going to check if j is not in integers. All right, and then we return j. Very straightforward, very, I'd say it's a very simple program, but again, this is linear, meaning that the bigger the input array, the longer it will take. So that is basically it for this problem for the missing number solution. This is the code in itself right here. And that concludes this video.